Okay, we're going to be looking at section 4.4 in Math 31. And in this section, we're going to learn how to add and subtract fractions that have like denominators. So the denominator here matches. A mathematician would say these are common denominators. They're shared denominators. So however many there are in both of these fractions, we're talking about the same size of fraction. They're twelfths in this first example. So once you have that, and that makes these problems easy because we already have matching denominators or common denominators, you just simply add across the top and keep the size the same. So we've got our answer here. It just simply needs to be simplified. We'll divide by 4 and divide by 4. Here's another example. When you add the tops, you get negative 10. And you don't add the bottoms. We're dealing with sixteenths. That just names the size of the pieces. They're sixteenths. We're just counting up sixteenths. So it's sixteenths in the first fraction, in the second fraction, and even in the answer. So it's common not only to the originals, but common to the answer. Now we're not done because this will typically or sometimes have to be simplified. We'll divide these both by 2 for our final simplified answer. Okay, once again, this whole section we've got given to us problems where the denominators are already matching, and we'll leave for the next section problems where we have different denominators. Okay, when you add 7 and negative 1, you get 6 and our common denominator. Now, dividing the top by 2 and the bottom by 2 gives 3 and 4, so we end up with 3 over 4m. Okay, in example D, what we have here is a common denominator on 3 fractions. So we're going to end up with tenths all the way down. First of all, negative 9t tenths plus 3t tenths plus 1t tenths. And how many tenths would that be? Well, when you add these together here, they are like terms, so you can do that. The first pair gives negative 6t. And if you add one more to negative 6t, you get negative 5t. And dividing top and bottom by 5 gives you your final answer here. Negative 1t over 2. So divide by 5 and divide by 5. Okay, example E. What we have is a subtraction problem, and it's got a double negative going on. So we're going to go ahead and change that to adding the opposite. Now it's a positive. We're actually adding it, that is. So our common denominator here is 3m. And when you add 11 to 1, you get 12. Dividing by 3 in this case gives 4 and 1. So you end up with a 4 and 1m, or just m. Okay, on the next one, we also have a subtraction followed by a negative. So we immediately change that double negative to adding a positive. And our common denominator in this case is 20. We've got matching denominators, shared denominators, and the sharing keeps going. It kind of gets infectious, and even the answer has the same size pieces. So we're talking about 20ths all the way down. We just have more or less of them depending on what the top adds up to. In this case, negative 7 plus 3 is negative 4. And we'll divide these both by 4. Clean it up, negative 1/5 is your answer. Okay, when you're asked to evaluate an expression, the one we're looking at here is x plus y, you can't do it unless they actually verbatim tell you what x and y are. So we're going to be using 1/8 for the y and 3/8 for the x. X plus y then becomes 3/8 plus 1/8, which is 4 across the top. And remember not to add the denominators. It's a common denominator. And you divide by 4 here, and you get 1 over 2. Okay, a subtraction problem here. It says x minus y. So we'll first write down the x. And then we'll say minus the y. And this section's easier because we have a common denominator provided for us. Okay, what I'm going to do here is change this to adding the opposite. And then I'm going to take the negative from the front and just use it up top instead. So what we have here, the negative sign can be in front or on top. You can even put it on the bottom, although that's not normal. Okay, so what we have here is negative 10 across the top, twelfths. Divide these both by 2 for your final answer. Negative 5/6. It probably would be advisable to redo this here so it's a little more obvious that you're dealing with negative 5/6. The equal sign, often people get confused and put that as the negative sign or think they've done that or something like that. Okay, perimeter is the sum of the side lengths. So if you start in the top corner and work your way clockwise, that's an arbitrary choice, but that's how I usually do it. 8/15 feet plus 11/15 of a foot plus 5/15 of a foot gives a grand total of how many 15ths? Well, the numerator that keeps track of how many, there's 8 and 11 would be 19. 19 and 5 more is 24. And we'll divide these both by 3. So your answer is 8/5. Now, since it's top heavy, you could write 1 3/5, but that's not needed. Okay, so that's my short little treatment of adding fractions that have the same denominator.